The next one is Buhari's signature was forged to withdraw $6.2 million, not naira now. You know, they don't like to do the maths. They like to tell us about these things in dollars.
You know, they like
to talk about these things in dollars. Two things it does. It tells you that our leaders are not Nigerians. That's one. Their life is not here. You know, where a man's wealth, riches are, that's where his heart is. So their wealth, their riches, their family, their children, their investment, their super homes, their wives' luxuries, all of them are in foreign countries, right? So in all of these countries, where the dollars and the pounds are spent. And so they think, act, and communicate to us in dollars. That is one. The second one is also, when you put it $6.2 million, for somebody who who has 10 million naira, his brain simply says, okay, 10, 6. So you don't understand the momentous corruption that is going on. And so the SGF was in court yesterday as a witness, the EFCC's witness, because the EFCC is alleging some monumental corruption on the neck of Emefiele, the former CBN governor. So there was this very transaction that involved the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, then headed by Boss Mustafa. So Boss Mustafa, while denying that he had anything to do with that transaction, gave some clue into this. One of the things he said was that is a weak attempt to reproduce the signature of Mr. Buhari, who was president then. And then he said the correspondence that has a seal of the Nigerian president, like that document has, does not carry a reference number. But that here is a letter that does not only carry the seal of the president, but also carries a reference letter, and he says, no, this is not it. He also said that fake decisions are not transmitted by letters, but by extracts. So, but then this one is different. This one was transmitted in letters. So normally this extract, after the meetings, the proceedings of the meetings are adopted, that is how it comes. So this one is a suspicious transaction. Another thing he said is that he's a custodian of fake. And so the president will not refer executive conclusions to him. You know, like he said, that very meeting, he even set the agenda for it. So, so this is not how these letters come about. He also talked about he has never heard the term special appropriation provision. That's always appropriation, and that's what we know, from the Appropriation Act. So, but then this one, so he went on and talked about, one other thing he talked about was that the federal government is not responsible for foreign observers. This money was meant for foreign observers, which falls under the, total purview of INEC to deal with. So he, in a nutshell, disowned this letter. One thing he said was that Buhari would never write to him and say, please accept the assurance of my highest regard. Buhari is my boss. Buhari is my boss. He wouldn't write to me this way. And so he simply said, he knows nothing about this transaction, and this is a forged and this was how money was moved out of the CBN. Now, these are still, it's in court. I'll wait for the courts to deal with this. But one thing I just want to say about this is, this just shows that we have some structural problems. Because if this was done, allegedly this was done, so if this really happened, this shows that we still have same system. Anybody in CBN today or in government today can still take advantage of this looseness in our system. What we call in Nigeria, these loopholes in our system, to exploit Nigerians. And it just shows, like, what we talked about previously, that it is not that Nigeria does not have the money, but it is just monumental corruption and greed that makes the government every time say there is no money for critical things to do, like education, like healthcare, like combating security, like putting food on the table, agriculture, and all of those things. That is the responsibility of government. The only time they ever have money is when they tell you they want to distribute 5,000 naira to 50 million nameless, addressless Nigerians. But then you know what made me happy? When I was going through it, and the man who collected this money in cash on behalf of the SGF, his name is Jubril. And I laughed because I said, oh, Buhari's administration, Jubril, collecting money, and now we hear that the federal government is looking for Jubril. I say, wonder shall never end. This is how I end. Jubril.
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 We are looking for Jubril. Buhari must find Jubril for us.
We're talking about forgery, corruption. It's all boils down to the fact that Nigeria has already become a country that when outsiders look at us, they keep on seeing us as forgers, people that keep forging. We take it down to when, I think 2017, when there was an alleged lawmaker who made an allegation that there was a crude oil in China that someone sent, someone forged Buhari's signature of 19 billion naira, and the person was the one that sent the crude oil to China. All these things boils down to forgery, because we're still talking about forgery. We're still going to link it to the certificate forgery. All links to, because the outsiders, the foreigners are looking at Nigeria, and they keep saying to themselves, we keep hearing things about forgery. Does it mean that this country, they don't know anything to do else? They're not even smart enough to do their things in a proper way, in a legal way? Must it be a forged something? Must it still be corruption? I'm not saying there are no corruptions in other countries, but it has now become a tradition in Nigeria that everything we have to do, we must link it to corruption. And we're talking about no money in the country. We're talking about excuse me. We're talking about no money in the country, no money for this, no money for that. We keep borrowing. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that we keep borrowing money when we can actually print a lot of money from the CBN? Yes, we can actually. Have you ever made that, like, have you ever had that thought in your mind?
But what do you think ways and means means? That was what they did during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari. They kept on printing money. That's what I'm saying. They kept on printing money. Before that is still what we are talking about. For them to print 1 trillion naira, they will still need 7 trillion to print that money, because it is a country of corruption. We keep on hearing things about forgery, and look at it now. Forged something from Buhari's administration, and we are in 2024. Jubril. The funny thing is that the name is the name is suspicious.
You know the history of this Jubril. You know the history.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So when I heard Jubril, I say, Jubril again. It's funny. All right, like you said, we really need to do something about this forgery, because like you said, it goes beyond just forging all of these documents. We are known to be a country of certificate forgers. Who forges and who does not forge, that is another conversation. All right, another thing that happened today in the news is the federal government, PDP governors, back and forth about corruption, about the state of the country. And also, Nigeria is sick on ICU, coming from the chairman, or is it president of the Catholic Bishops Association of Nigeria, Conference of Nigeria. All right, now, the one of the PDP, I think the PDP played a smart one on Nigerians. What the PDP actually did yesterday was to approve the BOT, the Board of Trustees. All right, so Senator Adolphus Wabara is now the BOT chairman of PDP, and my former state governor, astute politician, well-loved guy in Kaduna, the former governor of Kaduna State, Senator Ahmed Makarfi, he's secretary, right? I think secretary of vice, but I think secretary. So he's secretary, and rather than announce it that way, they came attacking, and so they gave value to that appointment, right? Because using the platform of that appointment, they hit at the federal government. It was actually the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Senator Bala Mohammed, governor of Bauchi State, who talked about Nigeria, that there is hunger and anger in the land. Called attention to the fact that there is much insecurity in Nigeria, and that the APC is sliding Nigeria into, is intending to slide Nigeria into a one-party state. His conclusion is that, and their conclusion, because they all echoed the same sentiment, is that if the PDP dies, then democracy in Nigeria dies. Because the only political party that can give the APC a run for its money, take the APC out of power and usher in good governance in Nigeria, they say is the PDP, right? And so no sooner had they said that than the federal government reacted in its usual way, hitting back at the APC, hitting back at the PDP and saying the PDP has no right to even say all of this, because on the first hand, the PDP governors have failed to use the increased federal allocation to better the lives of people in their states, that they've not done anything with agriculture, that the PDP governors are owing salaries, the PDP governors are owing pension and all of that. So why should the PDP be talking about all of that? How is the PDP in a, what moral ground do they have to talk about all of that? And so they talked about that. Well, the most reverend also called attention to Nigeria being sick and on ICU. But not only sick and on ICU, but also on life support. And he talked about all of the ills of Nigeria, from sectionalism to segregation, to nepotism, to ethnicity, to worthlessness of life and all of that. And this just like the PDP, the Labour Party also concurred with the PDP. Concord everything with the PDP. I know the only point they won't concord with the PDP is saying that without the PDP, democracy will die. They won't agree to that, but they agreed basically that this government has caused more hunger and anger in the land. And that is the same sentiment the most reverend was echoing that the government must sit up and get its act together, because Nigeria is sick on an ICU and on life support, and it's just saying, if you do not do anything, Nigeria will die. Because when you are on ICU, when you are intensive care unit, and you're on life support, your chances of surviving if you don't have good medical care is, it's not even 50-50. It's between you and God. And that God factor is where the church is coming in. Because the religious groups, whether Islam or Christianity, are there to be the moral compass of leadership. So speaking truth to power is what we expect of the clergy, and he did just that. And I think I concur completely with the most reverend.
Hardship has already become a very huge thing in Nigeria, because saying that Nigeria is in ICU, I think just saying they're in life support is better, because life support is something that once you pull it off, the person is off.
No, but to be on life support, you have to be in ICU.
That's what I'm saying, because life support is just that true. You're using this thing
just to survive. You're already dead.
You are dead.
You're dead.
It's just once they pull it out, that is the person is dead. It's just for them. They're using that thing to support the person's life. So you just saying that, him saying this, and I totally agree with him, because hardship. Last week we were talking about the protest. People were very angry. They went on protest because the hunger, everything has skyrocketed. They coupled from we started this since May 29, 2023.
Yep.
From May 29 till date, we have been going down, and there is nothing changing. There is no change in Nigeria. It is the president keeps on telling us that the only thing that he could do is just to make hardship, and from hardship we're going to get a better Nigeria. But we've been there. We keep on hearing promises upon promises. He keep on going from one private meeting, like the one he went on private vacation in France. He enjoyed himself. And I know you would look at me somehow. He had the enjoyment.
No, you are the one who looks at people somehow.
he had his enjoyment. He had his private meeting over there, and he came back. And during that period, we saw a lot of people that went on what they call it,
protest.
On protest. Thank you so much. On protest, when they went out on the street, and someone came out from nowhere and said that these persons that they were already paid, because people were already angry that the hardship has gotten up to here. They cannot contain it anymore. They had to post out, and this is what these persons are already saying. I think the federal government should actually do more, because it is no longer, we are no longer in fact, life support, once they remove that life support, Nigeria is gone. Yeah,
and the only people, I completely agree, protection of lives and property and welfare, catering for the welfare of the Nigerian citizens is the only reason, is the major reason why the president took an oath of office. That should be the reason why you campaign. And so when you get on board, it's not for you to, now we are hearing too many explanations, and it's totally uncalled for and unacceptable. All right. Gani Adams, the Are Ona Kakafo of Yorubaland, he's in the news. And he's in the news for writing to the Southwest governors, the governors of the Southwest. Of course, we recall that the Southwest governors had set up Amotekun, the regional security outfit, being their response to rising wave of insecurity in the Southwest. Setting up Amotekun was really a battle that was hard fought and finally won by those governors, because the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari would have nothing to do with that. But they stood their ground, and it is politics. Politics is a game of numbers. When the presidency saw that there was no split within the Southwest governors, that they could come in. This is a direct message to the Southeast governors, because the Southeast governors are the weakest, most unfocused, most irresponsible bunch of block of leaders in Nigeria. The South leaders have a better, even though they can do far better than they are doing, but they have a better forum where they can cooperate, at least agree on one or two things and move ahead. The northern governors, I don't want to talk about them. They're a mafia. The northern governors are a mafia, and they have refused to split into Southwest governors, into Northwest governors, North Central governors. They have refused to do that. They tell you we are the 19 governors of the North. The South tried that once and they failed. The rest is history. So this is Gani Adams, leader of the OPC, coming up to tell the Southwest governors that the state of insecurity in the Southwest is unacceptable. He gave an instance as to what happened with the killing of the Yoruba monarchs. The 3 Yoruba monarchs in Ekiti State. And a few days later, Kwara State was also invaded. And we saw the Olufon of Ifon killed sometime in 2020. He talked about that when he went to see the governor of then, Akeredolu. Then when he went to see Governor Akeredolu. We also saw that in Kwara State, an Oba was killed in Kwara State. And he said, this has never happened, when within a week, 4 Obas will be killed in Yorubaland. And talked about the rising wave of insecurity. I mean, we've seen that creeping into the Southwest. Suspected headers did this, suspected headers kidnapped, suspected headers killed, suspected headers robbed, community, and all of those clashes. And he said, this is the work of enemies, that the Yoruba kingdom now has sworn enemies, and that they need to be dealt with. Now, what he is saying is that he has the capacity. He has the capacity not only as leader of the OPC that has representation that goes as far deep as the wards, the villages, the cities across Yorubaland, but also about 13 or 15, either he said 13 or 15 other affiliate groups affiliated to the OPC. He said he has strategies to do this. He has a plan to do this, which he did not reveal, but then also agreed that in a democracy that we run, that the Southwest governors, that every governor is the chief security officer of his domain. And so you cannot conduct any security, any activity that has to do with security without consulting them. And he is pleading with them to give him the permission. In fact, he's pleading, first of all, for them to grant him an audience, like invite him over. So he meets with them as their subject. He is their subject. In this case, they are his subjects in another case. But then in this case, when it has to do with, leadership, governance, especially security, he is their subject. So he tells them his plans, tells them his ideas. And he says all of this insecurity in the Southwest can be stamped out within 6 months. That's what he said. Now, that sounds nice. But then we also recall that quite recently, coming at the heels of the murder of these Obas in Ekiti State, monarchs in Yorubaland had also come out and also offered the same thing, saying they are going to invoke the gods of Yorubaland to come deal with this. Also asking for permission to be allowed to deal with this traditionally. and talking about the reason why this is happening is that they've turned their backs on the gods of their fathers, that their ancestors have love for them. It's African. That's the African belief that the ancestors have love for us. They are here to protect us and everything, but we've turned our backs on them, and this is why all of these things are happening. In recent times, we have heard there is a rise of non-state actors asking for permission. Sometimes it is hunters asking for permission to meddle into core security matters that is either the responsibility of the federal government, where the president, being the commander-in-chief of the federation, is in charge, or in states here where both the president and the governors are in charge. And this speaks to one thing. Just like the PDP has said, the Labour Party has said, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria have also said through their president, is that Nigerians might soon have to take laws into their hands. The Middle Belt Forum have also said that much, that if we don't feel protected, if we don't feel like you can protect our lives and our property, we're definitely going to take. So this should be a wake-up call that this is a grumble right now. If it turns to a roar, Nigeria will not survive it. So I think this should be dealt with. We shouldn't allow everybody, we shouldn't allow non-state actors, in short, get into security discussions. But they are getting into it now because the government is not doing anything about it, in a summary.
You know, it's totally a shame to Nigerian government, Nigerian leaders, starting from the president, because we're talking about insecurity in Nigeria. This is something that we shouldn't be talking about in 2024, because it is a shame that someone is out and telling the governors of Southeast, please give me the permission for me to come and tackle insecurity, to come and fight insecurity. And the federal government, our leaders that are supposed to be protecting us, that are supposed to be guiding us, they are not. They are just so careless about the whole situation. They are just so careless about the entire thing. You know, the fastest thing I've noticed about this country is when there is need, when they want to share money for something, they will tell you they need 1 trillion naira to do something. That money comes out immediately. But once there are cases of insecurity, which has to do with kidnapping, killings, they tackle these issues with slow motions. But if it was to be issues like bring out money to do this, bring out money for this, bring out money for that, the situation is always swift. And so they are so fast in doing that when it comes to money. But when it comes to protecting the lives of these individuals that you're leading, protecting the lives of these persons, protecting and providing for us, you are very, very slow in it. We're talking about insecurity. Someone somewhere, you know, when we start giving hands to people like this, I'm not saying what he said. I'm not saying that he's what he said is wrong. When we start giving hands to individuals like this to start tackling issues, that is, like you just said, taking laws into your hands. When we start giving individuals rights that they should go ahead and do whatever they want to do, the country is going to be in chaos, because everybody will start protecting their own. Before you know it, somebody is going to protect their own against another person. Obviously, there's going to be fights everywhere in the country. We should be called one Nigeria. That is what we call ourselves. But definitely we are not one. We're not actually one, because I really don't understand how we're still talking about insecurity in 2024. We have a lot of things to deal with. The economy is nothing to write home about. And this is 2024. This is February. The federal government has done nothing about insecurity. They just keep giving us promises, empty promises. And the thing is, I should just stop here. We should not actually give room to anybody. Like, the federal government should just stand up and do the needful.
Stand up, do the needful. I like the way you ended. And also, let's not agree for anybody. At least, even though the police has warned us not to use that term, the army has encouraged us to use it. And so if the police arrest us, we'll report them to the army. I mean, I like that.
This year, no grief for
anybody. Grief for anybody. While the army agreed with Nigerians, on the side of Nigerians, that use that. No grief for kidnappers. No, you know, they had the things. The police came out and warned us not to use. You know, and this is where the fight on, because we just talked about insecurity, right? We just talked about insecurity, and the fact that the army is saying one thing and the police is saying another thing just tells you. You know, I was telling.
We talk about being one.
Yes.
We're not one. We're just like this.
We are one anyway, for now. But then I was having this joke with my friend, a major in the 302 Battalion, and when I told him about this, he said, I don't want to say what he said because my police friends will not like what he said. But then, state of emergency on drugs, the Nigerian Governors' Wives Forum. Everybody has a forum. I have one too. I have Citizens Forum. So they have their own forum. It's called the Nigerian Governors' Wives Forum. You know, they've come out to talk about a serious issue in the country, and that's drugs. And I think they're talking in their capacity as mothers because they have no constitutional role. They're talking as mothers and influencers because this is an influential body. It's a very influential body. It's a body that every member of this body has the ears of the governor. And it's very important we listen to them. And also because what they have said is true. Our children are on drugs. Our mothers, our fathers are on drugs. And it's a very serious problem. But today is Valentine. And I leave you to really talk about the drugs matter. But I want to talk about a kind of drug we should drink. Nature abhors vacuum. I think one of the reasons why we have lots of Nigerians on drugs, beyond the economic hardship, which is true, is poor parenting. Poor parenting, yes. Where are the fathers? Where are the mothers? It's a very serious problem, you know. And that is one of the, that area, I think the Governors' Wives Forum have failed to step in. Because it is, when we were growing up, we would hear American leaders say something. I'm very more about America because we used to watch CNN a lot where I came from. And so when they talk, they will always say, as a mother. Even when the president talks, he say, as a father. Barack Obama will do that, you know, as a father myself. So it is a shame that these mothers are not, their eyes are not open to the hardship mothers are going through in the hospitals. It's a shame that these mothers are wearing these expensive hair, these expensive clothes, expensive bags, you know, expensive motorcade, you know, and all of this, flying to Dubai, having fun here, drinking expensive wine. And they are seeing, they are looking out of their window, and they are seeing mothers not being able to fend for their babies. You know, they are seeing the policies of government that is making it, and they are surrounded by fat, sloppy, when I say fat, what I simply mean is those who are feeding fat on the nation's resources. And they read the news, and they are seeing people begging for 35,000 naira. And this 35,000 naira, none of them can sleep in a 35,000 naira hotel. None of them. None of them. You dare not book them into a 35,000 naira a night hotel. And they are seeing people with families. They are hearing in the news. They are hearing. If they can't see, they can hear. They can read. They're watching. That families are begging that their breadwinner goes home with 35,000 naira a month. And their husbands, they hear their husbands responding to these parents, to these families, that we can't afford to pay you 30,000 naira. When their children's school fees, their children's maintenance, a month will feed a village. So, as much as I agree with their message, which you might talk about, it is just to tell them that this is the height of hypocrisy, what they're doing. Because one of the causes of drug abuse is that families are not together. When the father has to keep two jobs, when the father is frustrated, I'm not justifying it. I'm not justifying it. There is no justification. When the mother, rather than spend time with her children, has to be all over the place. Wake up in the morning, she's rushing to go buy vegetables to sell, and then she gets to the market, and there are 1,001 taxes she has to pay. And it's difficult to raise a family in Nigeria as it is right now. So these are the kind of issues I expect them to talk about. And if this is done, we are going to have better parenting. With better parenting, and I said I was going to talk about a drug very briefly. You know, one of the drugs we need to introduce into our system is to get our children involved in creative things at an early age. Give them a, self-worth, that sense of self-worth. We can do it with sports. We can do it with motivating them. We can do it with pointing them to... So there are lots of programs we can do for our children, so that when their minds are engaged, their bodies are engaged, they have less time for this. But when our children have the time, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. The idle hands are his tools. So this is where I am today, even though I quite agree with them. The drug menace is a problem, and we must deal with it in every way, shape, and form.
Drug abuse is not just from bad parenting. Drug abuse can also be from, bad economy. Someone that is done with schooling. It can also be from peer groups. I read a story of a guy. He said when he started doing drugs was when he was 17 years, and he got into drugs. Just his friends told him to test it. He was like, I don't want to test this thing because my parents told me about this thing. They just told him, just test it, have a test of it, because it's just going to make you feel fine. He tested it, and from there he loved it. He loved how he felt, and from there, that was how he started doing drugs. And from there he now started selling drugs to persons. And this thing called I feel like this thing is when you have a very stable economy, you will not have the time to to talk about drugs or to start selling drugs. When you have stable economy, when you have something meaningful you're doing with your life, you will not have the time to think about drugs or doing drugs. Drug abuse, I think the economy, if the government should actually provide employment for people, for graduates, they would have things to keep them busy rather than thinking about drugs. I would have said a lot, but we're totally out of time.
Yes, we're totally out of time, and this is to say thank you to you for making this happen, and so happy Valentine to you. I definitely would take. She has pleaded a lot, and I'm a man with a nice heart, so I'm taking you out. Just tell me. In fact, I'll tell you what's on the menu. Let
me just tell you.
And I'll tell you where we're going to.
Okay, you're going to tell me where we're going to
after the program. And what's on the menu.
Okay.
Yeah. So will you agree to what's on the menu? You're going to eat what's on the menu, right?
When I see the menu, I would make the agreement.
Trust is the most essential ingredient.
I need to see the menu, so I will confuse.
Look, trust is the most essential ingredient in love. Today is Lover's Day. And so you just have to trust that what I have on the menu is perfect.
I don't trust.
So let me say you have trust issues.
Yes.
You have trust issues.
Yes.
I'll correct that.
Okay.
I can correct that. All right. News review will be here same time, same station tomorrow. I'm Jude Geoman.
And I'm Adoma Ezokeke. Thanks for watching.
All right.